Grace is here. Grace is here today as you begin to move into this time of meditation. As you gently close your eyes, gently root your feet to Mother Earth. And just allow the breath to flow naturally. Allowing the seat or the cushion or perhaps the floor to gently support your body. Grace is here. Look out the window. And you see grace. Watch a small child at play, and you see grace. Petting your beloved pet, you see grace. Stare into a mirror, and you see grace. Grace is all around you. It's in all the beauty of the world. Grace is the face in the mirror. And the beauty that smiles back at you. The question we ask ourselves today is how we can allow that grace to shine through each and every one of us. How perhaps can we allow that grace to reach beyond into every living being in which we share this planet? To perhaps the darkest of caves. Maybe what some of us even view as the darkest of times. Grace still exists. We just have to open both our physical and our spiritual eyes. And there it is found. And as we prepare to enter into our moment of silence, I invite you to ask yourself, how today can I allow that grace to shine through? What is it today that is mine to do? how can I be the grace that I already am? As we enter into our moment of silence. And as we begin to bring our focus back to this present moment, we bring with us an awareness that we also feel this grace that we are. We just have to allow ourselves to feel it. To radiate it. To bless it. And to behold it. I invite you to silently affirm the affirmation after me. I am grace. And so it is. Namaste. And we continue to affirm that grace that we are through our new Lord's Prayer. And how perhaps I can just, stop being resistant to perhaps what it's calling me to do. And to just kind of start to just go with the flow and just kind of see where the tide's taking me. Now, in the ways in which we choose to flow or not with the way life presents itself, or perhaps the way life shows up, is a little bit what I'd like to talk about today. Now, I'm one that I like to view a great deal of life as various teachings. One large classroom, if you will. That's kind of the way I like to view life. Kind of like school when we were kids. You either begrudged it because you had to go sit in the seat, which I didn't always like to do, or we can start to pay attention to it a little bit and say, hey, what is it I can learn from this? What is it perhaps that life is trying to teach me? Now, my parents quite gratefully raised my sister and I going camping. We'd go on weekend camping trips, we'd go on summer camping trips, but there was this one specific state park in Texas, and it's called Guadalupe River State Park. Now, it's not too far from Austin and San Antonio, and it received its name because the Guadalupe River flows right through it. Now, I don't know if you've heard much about the river or if you've ever been to Texas and visited this river, but it has a very strong current. Most people tend to like to get in the water where it's not so deep so you can keep yourself upright. Otherwise, it's almost a constant battle to be able to stay on your feet or to stay in one place because it'll just, swipe you off your feet and just drag you along. But swimming against that current is next to impossible, even when you have a life jacket on. But my sister and I used to laugh because we'd try to swim against it. And it was almost like those swimming pools you can get at your home where you're doing the swimming exercise and it keeps you in one place. But we'd laugh because we'd try so hard and we'd be looking at my parents on the bank, and there they still were, in that same spot because we just weren't moving. The current was just too strong, but it didn't mean that we didn't try, though. But after a while, we find ourselves just completely wore out from trying to swim against that current, and we would just stop. We just decide to lay back at that point, just allow that natural flow of the river just to carry us where it was that we needed to be. And we found it much simpler when we did that and just kind of went along with the flow. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit today, going with the flow of life, what that means, and perhaps how it can look. Now I would imagine that most everyone today is familiar with Shakespeare and his infamous quote, "To be or not to be." In other words, do we choose to accept life in all its totality, to be, or do we split it up into likes and dislikes, or not to be? It's almost like, imagine yourself walking up to a buffet of what you know is all healthy foods. Whether you like it or not, you're walking up to this buffet and it's got all healthy foods, no pizza. But it's like looking at the buffet and looking at the different foods you've never tried before. Oh, I don't like the way that looks. That one must be bad. Now that one looks tasty, so that one must taste good. But in reality, we already know that all of the foods on that buffet are good for us, whether we're judging it by the way it looks on the outside or not. It may taste good. It may not look like it would taste good, but it tastes good. We may find several that aren't overly palpable, but we know that each one of the foods on that healthy buffet is going to give us the vitamins and minerals that we need to ultimately keep our bodies healthy. Labeling it good or bad by the way it looks isn't going to change that fact. We may even be labeling one of the foods bad from our own perception of it, right? You may think cauliflower looks good. I might look at it and think it doesn't look good, but it still doesn't change the fact that it's ultimately healthy for me. Now, isn't life kind of like that as well sometimes? Now, this one's fun. I like this one. It's peaceful, it's pleasant, I like it, I want more of it. Oh, that one over there, not so much. I don't want any more of that. I don't like that. It doesn't look good. Zen patriarch Sin Tuan stated, "The perfect way, the Tao, is only difficult for those who pick and choose. Do not like, do not dislike. All will then be clear." So what if our experiences through life aren't meant to be good or bad? What if they are meant to just be? Now, the first I'd like to talk about is what Taoists will sometimes refer to as the gift of detachment or non-attachment. Lao Tzu once stated, "Colors blind the eye, sounds deafen the ear, flavors numb the taste, thoughts weaken the mind, desires wither the heart. The master observes the world but trusts their inner vision. He or she allows things to come and go. His or her heart is open as the sky." So have you ever noticed how much more smoothly life flows when we approach something from a place of non-attachment? When we just kind of allow ourselves to just kind of go along with the flow, much like my sister and I did in the Guadalupe River. And what do we do when we go with the flow? Could it be said that we're trusting something that's much greater than the ego? Something that's wanting to fight against the flow? Maybe that part of us that has the desire to run the show, ego knocking on the door, wait, I don't want to go with the flow. Let's go against it. Let's go against it and see what's that direction. But I remember several years back when I interviewed for this job that I really wanted at the time. I just knew that my life would be perfect if I got this specific job. I was so strongly invested in the outcome of getting that job, and I just knew in my mind that I would be crushed if it did not pan out. Every day I was obsessively checking my email, checking my phone, wondering if and when they were going to call. Then the end of that day would roll around and I'd hear nothing. I'd be like, oh, there went another day, I didn't hear anything. And I'd start the compulsively checking the email and the phone all over again the next day. And what, of course, happened? The job did not pan out. Of course, life went on. But looking back, I came to the realization that during that time period, I was really uptight. I had a lot hinged on the outcome of this specific job. Even on the specific job interview, I don't even think I was truly myself during that interview because I was trying to conform to what I thought the interviewers wanted me to be, the way they wanted me to answer questions. And I remember leaving that interview and I played in my mind starting in the parking lot, I should have answered this question this way or that way, or maybe I should have put held my hands a little bit differently in my lap, whatever. I was just playing this over and over again. And it was almost a relief when I finally did hear something, even if it wasn't the news that I wanted, because I was able to finally just move on and to let it go. I could stop checking my phone and my email every 5 minutes, stop wondering about what it was going to be like, what was going to happen if I did or didn't get it. Now, the job interview alone, looking back now, that job interview alone would have been a wonderful time and place to practice non-attachment. Imagine how much more I would have probably enjoyed that interview if I had just been myself. Put my hands where I wanted to put my hands, if I wanted them folded a certain way in my lap, answered questions the way that I knew I wanted to answer them. If I had just practiced the art of not being attached, of non-attachment, I probably would have relaxed a lot more. Whether I would have got the job or not doesn't really matter. It's just would have been my experience throughout that interview process. But I was so attached to the outcome of the interview that I wasn't able to step back and to see a much larger picture, that there was something much larger in store for me, maybe at a different time. And when we allow ourselves to go with the flow, we do so with ease and with grace, what we just sang about earlier and meditated on. We do so with trust and with faith. And you can only be, I think about the ocean with this, because you can only be on one side of the ocean at a time, right? Yet we're only on one side of the ocean, but we trust that there is land somewhere out there on the other side of the ocean. We can't always see it when we're on the ground looking out into the ocean, but what if we were to go up into a satellite or view it from the space station? We would be able to see that we would be able to see things through a much larger lens. I can't always tell from where I'm standing that the universe possibly has something far better in store for me. I just have to trust that it does. And in that, there is peace, there is faith, there is the knowing. Peace and knowing that will allow me to go with the flow, knowing that whichever way the wind blows is going to be just fine. Tao teachings state, the only rule is this: abstain where there is reason to abstain, enjoy what there is to enjoy, never dividing sacred from mundane. It is one gracious whole, giving you itself. Keep your eye on this. And we can do this. It's going back around to the Shakespeare, to be or not to be. We can stop saying, oh, well, this is bad, this is good, judging these things as good or bad. This is exactly what I want. This isn't at all what I want. How do we know unless we just go with the flow? Of knowing that the river knows exactly which way it's supposed to flow. It doesn't stop and consult us which way it's supposed to flow. It doesn't stop and consult the fish that live in it which way it's supposed to flow. It doesn't try to suddenly change its mind and flow in the opposite direction. It just flows. It just is. And that's the way that we can also be. Now, I also wanted to talk about something the Chinese refer to as yin mind. And if anybody wonders what I'm saying with my Texas accent, it's Y-I-N, yin. One of the main things that can block our flow is something I talked about last week, and that is clutter. It's carrying too much clutter up here. Did anybody ever build one of those little dams with rocks as a kid? The neighborhood kids and I would gather rocks after a good rain, and we'd go running out onto where the water would flow down the street. And we would take those little rocks and we would build little dams with them. And we would kind of just start to watch the water gather and pool up there where we had built our little dam. The clutter in the mind basically works the same way against flow. It's like we're building those little dams where we're preventing the flow from getting through and from just happening naturally. Yin mind, on the other hand, is a mind that's open. It's receptive. And it doesn't feel like it's got to be constantly filled with all this clutter. It doesn't have to try to control every single thought or every small detail that is happening in life. It's open, it's ready, and it's waiting to just go with the flow. The Tao says this about Yin mind: kneeling at the gates of heaven with only love to give, we listen for the rush of wings. Truth flies to the open heart. In the Tao of Contemplation, author Jasmine Lee Corey mentions this verse, and she also states, it is easier to maintain such openness when the mind is quiet. Now, there's the Zen story of a professor who had gone to study with a Zen master. He arrives eager and he's ready to learn, but he won't stop talking. He's just talking away non-ceasingly, and he believes himself to be full of wisdom. And he's just got to share all of this wisdom he knows with this great Zen master to try to impress him and to let him know how much wisdom and knowledge he's got. On and on he goes. When the Zen master finally, being able to get a word in edgewise, asked him if he would like some tea. The professor's like, sure, I'll take a cup of tea, and just starts talking again. So the Zen master begins to pour the cup of tea, and the glass gets full, and he keeps pouring. And eventually the tea is over-flooding. Much to the dismay of the professor, the tea glass is just overflowing. And the professor points this out to the master and says, hey, you might want to pay attention there. Your cup is too full. It's overflowing. The master stops and tells the professor that the mind is much like that cup. It cannot take in any more when it is already full. To move forward, the professor was going to have to let go of his preconceptions and start over with the beginner's mind. Author Jasmine Lee Corey states, it is not easy to keep an open mind when we have been filled with ideas and when pungent life experiences have led to strong convictions. It helps if we can stay curious and really want to know the truth. Then we are happy no matter the outcome. Notice she says when we really want to know the truth. That's the key. We have to want to know the truth. And this can happen when we just allow ourselves to go with the flow, to just be, to sway along like the wind, and by letting go of trying to swim upstream or trying to control the way the wind blows or the water flows. We can't flow if we're trying to control the outcome of every single thing. Sometimes we just simply have to allow ourselves to be, to utilize at least one of our Unity 12 powers, which is that of faith, the foundation of all of our powers, right? We have to trust that the God within, the spiritual part of us, knows exactly what it is doing. That our intuition, that something much greater than this human size knows exactly what it is doing. It's very difficult to follow the flow if we've got our own agenda and we're stuck to it and not willing to want to learn and know the truth and to practice it. So our series continues next week, and we're going to continue to talk about the Tao. And we're going to delve further into one of the cornerstones of Tao philosophy, and that is where it's much more about non-doing than doing. And about how non-doing is only doing those things that are natural and in alignment with the flow of life. And I invite you and hope that you'll honor us by spending your Mother's Day morning with us next week as we talk more about the Tao. So namaste. Again, we miss having everybody in the congregation. I'm looking out and seeing Kay and Pete and Martin, and it'll be good to look out and see all of your friendly faces again. So namaste, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in with us this morning. And now I would like to go ahead and invite you to join with me and to bless our children in our youth ed department. Because as we mentioned earlier, our children in our youth ed are out there. They're still attending their own services through Zoom, through the wonderful lessons created by Helen Kenyon and our wonderful staff of volunteers. So I'd like to invite you to bless them all with me. Children and Youth Ed Department, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ you are. And today...
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. All right. All right, the weekend updates. We got a little bit going on here. Oh, the tithe part first? Okay. Oh, all right. Well, here we go. Okay, while you're preparing your tithes and offerings, I remind you that Silent Unity, it takes the village to do a service too here. I remind you that Silent Unity is standing by to support you with prayer 24/7. Please take your tithes and offerings in your hands or place them over your heart as we say together our offertory blessing. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And virtual ushers, please come forward while we sing our new offertory song, Thank You.
Thank you.